around the fire, playing games with my sweet. She plays out marshmallow, gosh, that's hard to beat. Oh, how I desire to toast that mallow man, but it keeps on going back to her hand.
Come on now, let's play some Lorcana.
We'll smash some s'mores like Hans and Princess Anna. We'll
Lick a Mickey bar to his friendly face, invites you through a smorgasbord of Lord S'morecana.
Hello and welcome back to the S'morecana podcast. I'm Brett.
I'm Katie.
And we are on episode 4.
Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Does it ever? Are we still number 1 in the world, Brett?
Let me just take a quick look here at the many Lorcana / Disney / snack crossover podcasts.
Wow.
And yep, we're still number 1.
No way.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
a long list, to be sure, but there we are, right at the top of that specific niche variety of podcast.
Yep, that's us, number 1 in the world.
Way to go. 4 episodes strong.
Well, what are we talking about today, Brett?
We have quite a jam-packed episode for everybody.
All kinds of treats.
It's going to be absolutely stuffed.
Mm.
But first, what have we been doing this week? How's this week been?
We've been doing so much. It's been February vacation. We've been playing Lorcana all day, every day.
Pretty much. It's been really great. It timed out perfectly that Inklands released, and then you got to have a big old break from work.
Yeah, it feels like it was years ago that Inklands released.
So much has happened.
And we still don't know how to say it. Our poll came out to be 50-50.
The poll is still up. If you're on Spotify specifically, there is a poll. We're trying to figure out how to pronounce Inklands or Inklands or whatever. If you know, take a vote for us. It's evenly split, literally 50-50 right now. So please help us out. We're at a total loss.
It's such a loss. But beyond that, I mean, we've gotten a lot of really good games in. We've gotten a lot of amazing cards. We just got a legendary last night.
Yeah, it's our third Mickey Trumpeter, which we pulled from a couple packs that we happened to pick up at a new game store that was near your parents' house. That was pretty cool. Shout out to Midgard Games in Derry, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm. And we got our first Lorcana playmat.
We did.
Which is so exciting.
That was so cool. We asked if they happened to have any playmats, not expecting this to come to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the kind clerks at the store said, well, we have this Beast Forbidding Recluse mat that's been sitting here that somebody left here months ago. And, it's just been in this drawer and nobody's claimed it. And I said, well, we'd be happy to purchase that from you if you're selling it.
Yeah.
And then
they just gave it to us. It was a miracle. It was a late Christmas miracle.
And every single time we see that card, you quote the flavor text.
Woe to the one who draws his gaze.
So I was really happy for you to get a card that you have adored.
It's so good. It's so the art is so good. Every time you see it, you have to stop and you have to say, woe to the one who draws his gaze.
Woe to the one who draws his gaze.
It's so good. And
so
the
good.
playmat is awesome. And it's been so fun.
Beautiful. In recent news, also, Set Championships got announced. They're going to be held April 19th through the 28th, 2 consecutive weekends in April. Very, very exciting for many people. Unfortunately, I have to perform in a production of Macbeth, which is cool. I'm very excited to perform those 2 weekends, but the show happens to be those 2 weekends, and I won't be able to make it to Set Championships. But you're going to go.
Yeah, you better believe it.
You're going to compete.
Yeah.
And anybody listening should go too.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be so fun. I don't even know what to expect. I'm just used to going to our local game store and playing against, like, you. So I'm very curious and excited and, I don't know, a little sweaty about it, so I can't wait.
Yeah, a little sweaty, but also, there's nothing to lose and everything to gain, right? They're going to be really, really fun. There's going to be participation prizes and door prizes and things like that. So even if you're a novice player, you should go and participate. And if you lose every game, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And if you win every game, that's just gravy.
Yeah. Just gravy.
And the nice thing about going to a tournament for the first time is, if you're not familiar, the way Swiss pairings work is if you lose your game, you're going to face somebody who also lost their first game. And if you lose again, you're going to face somebody who also lost their first 2 games. So as the day goes on, if you keep playing, you're going to be playing against a lot of people who are at that point playing for the fun of it. And it becomes a lot looser. You tend to have a lot more fun, or you tend to be playing against folks who are bringing meme decks or fun decks or homebrews, weird combos, things like that. So there's nothing to lose. You really should go. It's the first big official event for Lorcana across the country. Everybody's going to be playing in these set championships. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be great. To me, I think of like a 5K race where like you could try to win first place and you could compete really hard and train all day and you're like a beast at running a 5K, or you could put on a cute outfit and have fun with your friends and walk half of it, and you still have a great time.
Yeah, it's like the Disney 5K even, right?
Yeah.
Like where you see folks who are, it's going to be hard to win a 5K if you're dressed up as Belle Hidden Archer, which shout out to the person who did that. That was really, really cool. Yeah. And maybe they did win, I don't know. But I imagine it would be more difficult to run in a full Belle Archer costume. But yes, you have a little more fun for sure.
Definitely. That's the way to do it. YOLO.
Yeah. So make sure you go to Set Championships, April 19th through 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we've been enjoying this week with a little extra time together, DuckTales, the new animated series.
Love DuckTales. It's so good. My sister told us to watch this years ago, and we didn't because we were so dumb back then.
Fools.
But it's so good. Every episode slaps. I would dare to say it's even better than it used to be. I don't want to be blasphemous on this podcast, but it's just so good. Like, we could watch it all day. It's amazing.
It's extremely well done, and the talented voice cast is amazing. I mean, David Tennant, so good. He's perfect. And so there's great humor. It really hits for, I think, adults and for kids. I'm not usually one to really enjoy like what I would consider a cartoon for kids, right? Like, I don't know, I might write that off, but I have really, really enjoyed DuckTales. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's so cool to watch it now with all these Inklands cards out there.
Absolutely. I had no idea who Magica Dispel was, but I was really, really excited and intrigued to find out.
Now we know.
And now we know. And
we can't tell anybody.
No, but she's a very cool character. We can say that. It's really, really well done. And it's a show that builds upon itself episode after episode, which is really cool. So you get these long story arcs that have big payoffs. Really neat to see.
So good. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend.
Well, what else do we have in store for this episode? What's on the menu for episode 4?
Oh, great question. Let me see if there's a waiter around here. Waiter?
Yes, madame.
Oh, hi.
Oh, bonjour.
Oh,
Comment ça
French.
va?
Oh, I do not speak it. My husband does, but he's not here right now. What do you have on the menu for Smorcana episode 4?
For today, for the appetizer course, we have a bevy of snack options where we will discuss the many meta development of the Into the Inklands expansion.
Okay. I had a question about what our main course was for today.
Ah oui, les entrées.
Yeah, oui.
Oui, for the entrées, we will be providing a deck building recipe. We will show you how to build a competitive deck, a fun deck, one that perhaps you have not seen before. We will go over so many deck building principles.
Oh, wow. All right. Thank you so much. Do you have anything for dessert?
Oui, we have a bit of a retrospective on the composer Alan Menken.
Oh, beautiful dish.
Yeah, he is a tremendous composer for the Disney movies.
Yes.
For a small après-dinner drink, perhaps a little bit of a dream card.
A dream card, really?
Oui, from our very own Notre Dame.
Wow. Well, that sounds incredible.
Formidable.
Yeah, beautiful. Really nice. If you could get us started with some baguettes, we'd love to hop into our
des baguettes,
appetizer.
oui.
Thank you, Francois.
De rien.
The appetizer course.
Ooh!
What you been snacking on in Inklands?
Gosh.
What's been good? What's been yummy? What have we been playing? What have we found?
What hasn't been yummy in the Inklands, you know?
It's been a lot of fun, right?
It's been so
A
fun.
lot of new archetypes, a lot of things to try. It seems like there is a big meta shakeup. Really exciting stuff.
And I gotta say, it feels like we were right about a lot of our calls from early on.
We just watched the end of the 190-ish person online Pixelborn tournament where McDuck Manor featured prominently. And that was doing a lot of lifting for a Sapphire Steel deck that was in the finals.
Woo! Boy, was it ever.
So that was a good call by you. I think Ursula, your Ursula call, that's panned out, right? That Ursula's been more impactful than Jafar. Really cool stuff. But overall, and locations have been really fun, right?
Yeah.
But overall, I'd say the deck that we've been enjoying and been really impressed by so far is probably this Emerald Amethyst
Oh my God.
dish. Whew.
Unreal.
I'd say it's kind of like it reminds me of like a hibachi dish, right? Like lots of flipping and bouncing and things jumping all over the place, flying in and out of play. Lots of actions to take. Goes really, really fast. Emerald Amethyst with all that, the bounce package and with Ursula has been excellent.
Yeah, not dissimilar to Tokyo Dining in Epcot in Japan. The big hibachi spot in Disney World.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Emerald Amethyst is the Tokyo Dining hibachi dish of Into the Inklands. What else? How about Steel Song?
Oh, Steel Song can never go wrong for us. We love Steel Song. We've always loved Steel Song. We keep trying to edit and update Steel Song so that we can keep playing it so that it'll stay relevant for us.
A lot of different directions you can go, right? Because you can go with the Stitch Rockstar package and you can try to cheat him out really fast with Pluto. There's still the question of whether or not you run flutes, right? Is Hercules not as good anymore in a meta that has Along Came Zeus? You have all of these different decisions to make when you build that deck. But overall, it seems like Steel in general is something that you could pair with many, many ink colors.
Yes.
If not all of the ink colors. There's so many staples that carry decks.
Yeah, Steel feels like it's the bread of Lorcana. You can put bread with anything.
Sure.
Much like a pizza.
Yeah. It's like a pizza. You can put lots of toppings on it. Right? It's like a nice Via Napoli pizza. Probably our favorite restaurant in Disney World, right? Had so many great meals there.
Might be our favorite restaurant, in the world.
It might be, at least in the World Showcase.
Yes.
But yeah, it feels like, if Steel's the pizza, it's like it's all these different toppings that you can put with it. It can be amber, it can be emerald, it can be amethyst, it can be sapphire. They're all excellent. And one of the downsides of that, of course, is that there are so many staples that go in all of those Steel decks, right?
Yeah.
You've got Beast Tragic Hero, you've got the new Robin Hood, you've got Tinkerbell, Whole New World, right? And you've got some kind of combination of Strength of a Raging Fire or Along Came Zeus or Smash or all of these staple cards that are in every single deck, which isn't the worst thing. But what makes it hard is that the collective cost of those Steel staples is over $300.
It's insane. It's like saying that. So the Steel Song is like pizza, right? And it would be like saying you can have as much dough as you want, but the sauce and the cheese are $300.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well I can make it with different cheese and different sauce, and it still is a pizza, but it's just not as good as it could be.
Right. And so, maybe you can afford to have that playset of Beast Tragic Heroes and Robin Hoods. But are you going to have multiple playsets of those if you want to experiment with different decks, which is a situation that we've run into a little bit, right? Like how could we can't really test Emerald Steel against Amethyst Steel, right?
Right. You don't want to make a deck that has 8 proxy cards. That just doesn't feel great.
Half of your ink color combination is just a bunch of proxies because all of the other copies are in your Amber Steel list. It gets really difficult.
Yeah, Steel is tricky. We love Steel, but it'll be nice when it kind of falls out of favor, and then we can get those cards for not $1 million.
Or if it becomes a situation where you're choosing between Beast Tragic Hero or Robin Hood as your 5-cost steel card, right? Because something else has supplanted them. Or because hopefully a few other cards have supplanted them. Makes it a little bit difficult with the smaller card pool in the game overall to build multiple decks.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's because steel is very, very strong. And whether you put it with amber, which is usually what we end up putting it with,
Yeah.
or putting it with emerald or amethyst, which are also very good, then it's going to be strong for you.
We've had luck with putting steel with sapphire.
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah. And we just watched Moyen do very, very well with that Sapphire Steel list, ramping up. It's still good to play Fishbone Quill and then Whole New World and fill it up your hand again.
Some things never change.
And then, besides those kind of two, I'd say what we've found in our little bit of playing to be the strongest decks, there are a lot of different things you can do that are really fun, right? So you've got that Emerald Amethyst really strong, all those steel decks really strong, sure, but so many fun little diversions, divertissements.
Francois, is that you again?
that are fun. They're not as competitive, sure, but you get to use a lot of fun new cards and see what you can do to make them as competitive as possible. They're almost like the big, fluffy, high frosting cupcakes that you can find all over the place, right? Not as much nutritional value, but they're super fun to eat. You wouldn't want to have them all the time, but they're delicious. So, I'm thinking of, as an example, the pirate deck that we've been messing around with, right?
Yeah, we love the pirate deck. Pirate deck's got a lot of fun locations. We lucked into 4 legendary Jim Hawkins, which has been fun to play around with. We've been proxying some John Silvers in there that we've really loved. It's been fun to play down here, like you said, at Tier 3 and Tier 4 with just some of the crazy fun thematic combinations we've been able to make.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got 16 Captain Hooks in your deck, you have to have some Captain Hooks rapiers, right?
Right.
Is that a good card?
No.
Is it super fun?
Yes.
Especially if you can get a couple of them out there and you have like the repeatable, challenging Captain Hook, the new one, who readies after he banishes the character if he's coming in for, Challenger 3 as well. It's really fun.
Yeah, the best. And our pet deck, our Pete Action Hero deck, which we had from last expansion too.
Yeah, my favorite card from the new expansion might be Airfoil.
Your new favorite card definitely is Airfoil. You love
It's
that card.
definitely Airfoil. I love Airfoil, especially if you play it in a list that's we've been playing it Emerald Ruby,
Mm-hmm.
and load up with 20 plus actions, especially the cantrippy ones, and you get a couple Airfoils online. You can be playing a couple of events every turn, of actions every turn, draw a couple cards every turn. Super, super fun.
The most fun.
And, we call it Pete Action Hero because Pete, bad guy, is pretty strong in that deck. And it's really, really fun to play.
Yeah, he's a real hero in our deck.
Yeah. And then, Titans. We've been messing around with a Titan build, and that's something we're going to talk about more in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Love that Titans deck. So much fun.
So actually, what we're going to do for the main course is dive into a Titans deck.
Yeah. Let's go into the kitchen and make a dish with the chef.
I'll meet you there.
All right.
Time for the main course.
Ooh.
Lorcana Deck Building 101. Now, given the IP, it makes sense that there are some folks out there who are super interested in Disney but haven't played a trading card game before.
Right.
And a question that I see asked all the time is, how do I build a deck? Can you give me some advice about this new deck? It's the first time I'm ever building one. So we wanted to look at some of the basic principles by which you might build a deck and share up our recipe.
Right. How can you go from the lean cuisine frozen meal of a starter deck and then make your own dish?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a couple stipulations for this. First, we're going to say that the total deck cost can't exceed $100.
Yeah, this is for fun. This is on a budget. This is not to change our lives here.
And like we said, there are so many staples in so many decks that it would be really easy to say, well, you throw in your 4 Beast Tragic Heroes, you throw in your 4 Robin Hoods, and you're already well on your way. So we want to keep the cost down, keep away from some of those big legendaries that might be auto includes if you were building this more competitively, and focus on cards that are a little bit more accessible.
Definitely.
All right. So if you're thinking that you want to build a deck, presumably, there's a reason for that. You have a card that you're interested in, an impulse, a flavor, if you will, that you're chasing, something that you haven't experienced before, but that you'd like to try. You'd like to have a little taste.
Right. Maybe for this situation, you've just opened a couple of packs and you got all of the Titans or a bunch of Titans and you can't wait to put them all together and use them.
Yeah. The most important thing is that whatever you choose is fun to you and that it's something that you want to play for multiple games, because that's how you make a deck better, is you play it several times at least over and over again and iterate and iterate. But like Katie said, today we're going to look at Titans because it's a deck that has a base that's easy to determine. It's something that looks really powerful and fun and has a high-end combo that is super, super fun if you get to pull it off. So we'll start there with the Titans. All right. A little bit about deck building principles. Ratios is something that you always want to consider. Ratios are kind of what keeps everything in balance in a deck, right? You wouldn't want to make a dish with a mountain of salt and, a single bite of a protein and have it soaked in a whole bucket of lemon juice, right? You have to keep your acids and your salts and your fats in balance. Similarly, in deck building, you need to keep all of your ratios in balance. In Lorcana, what does that mean? Well, first, uninkables.
Yeah, how many of those do we want?
So there's no hard and fast answer for how many uninkables you want. There's no one number that's right for every single deck. For instance, if you don't have a high curve, you don't have a lot of expensive cards, then maybe you could afford to get away with a couple more uninkable cards, right? But we're just going to throw out a number here.
Sure.
As a basic guideline that's kind of in the neighborhood, in the ballpark of what you might want, right? It's, let's say 14.
Sounds like a good number to me.
14. You don't want to have more than 14 uninkables.
That's about a quarter of your deck.
Yeah.
Little less.
Yeah. And, I compare this to like eating your vegetables, right? Like you just need to have a certain amount of inkable cards in your deck if you're going to stay balanced and healthy, right?
Yeah.
So beyond that, you have your cost curve.
Yeah, what is the curve? Now, I've heard of players playing on the curve. I have been complimented for playing on the curve before. But what exactly does that mean?
So playing on the curve versus the curve of your deck are kind of two separate things. When I talk about the curve of a deck, we're talking about if you imagine a graph, you'd want, of all the different costs of cards in your deck, you'd want it to look like a bell curve, generally speaking, right? And these are generalizations, just talking about the very basics here, yeah?
Sure.
So you have your 1-cost cards, your 2s, your 3s, your 4s, your 5s, and then your 6 pluses is kind of how it shakes out in Lorcana. And generally, again, this is a generalization, but generally, your cost curve in Lorcana is going to peak around 3 cost, right? So you'll have the most 3-cost cards. You'll have slightly fewer 2 and 4s and 5s, then even fewer 1s and 6+ cost cards. Most of the time, as a general rule, that's going to be a good starting place for any deck. Now, playing on curve, just to answer your previous question there, playing on curve means that on turn 1, you're playing a 1-cost card. On turn 2, you're playing a 2-cost card. On turn 3, you're playing a 3-cost card. It's generally very strong to play on curve. It means you're putting forth the maximum amount of tempo, expending the maximum amount of resources every single turn.
Yeah, playing on curve, aided by having a good curve in your deck.
Absolutely.
But not the same thing.
Not the same thing. Yeah. Then there's ratios about card types, right? you can have a certain number of characters, a certain number of actions, a certain number of items, locations, right? And there's no one rule for how many of each type of card you want to have in a deck. If you've looked at Sapphire cards, you've noticed they have a lot of powerful items. If you've looked at Steel cards, you've noticed that they have a lot of really powerful actions. So if you're playing Steel, you might play more actions. If you're playing Sapphire, you might play more items, right? So there's no one hard and fast rule. However, I would say that you don't want to have fewer than about 40 characters in a deck. And most of the time, you want to have closer to 50.
Wow.
Yeah. And now, again, these are just rules of thumb. A good place to start, you know? Is your deck going to be massively impacted if you have 39 versus 40 characters? No. Is it going to be massively impacted if you have more 4-cost cards than 3-cost cards? No, not at all. And oftentimes that will be the right thing to do. However, if you're just looking at a way to build your first deck in Lorcana and have it play reasonably smoothly and be a good starting place so that you won't feel really frustrated when you play it, these are good rules to start with.
Yeah, you're cooking it to taste. It's not baking, which is an exact science, but you're cooking, you're adding a dash of salt, adding a dash of peppers, adding more spice, whatever you need as you go. So, what are the ingredients that we need for this dish? What should we grab out of the pantry and the fridge?
So here's what I did. I went onto Dreamboard and I pulled quite a few cards for this list. I pulled 124 cards.
Whoa!
124 ingredients from the pantry.
Wow, that's like twice as many as usually go in a deck.
It sure is. But here's the thing that I like to do is I like to pull packages of cards, things that I'm interested in from a number of different categories, and then trim the fat from there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled a whole bunch of packages for our Titan build, right? First I pulled, you might have guessed, a bunch of Titans. There are 4 different Titans plus Hades. You have a package of 20 cards right there, right? That's the protein of the deck. That's the meat. That's what's going to be the backbone, the reason that you even made the deck in the first place was to put those 20 cards in.
Right.
Then we have another package, a little sprinkling of salt. This is the card draw package. These are some generically good, common to uncommon amethyst cards that will draw you more cards. It's the thing that you need to make every single dish sing, right? You always need card draw in any card game, but especially Lorcana where your cards are played to the table and they serve as resources in and of themselves. You need card draw. So I put a whole bunch of card draw cards into this. Pulled them from the pantry.
Mm-hmm. Sprinkle some card draw over your shoulder for good luck, too.
Absolutely. So then I pulled the Mim and Merlin package. I did this because it is known to be a very strong package, right? There are lots of these cards in the game that have a reputation, right? And they have it for a reason. It's because when they are in a deck, they make the deck better. So I pulled the Mim and Merlin package from the pantry. We've got the Mim Snake, the Mim Fox, the Merlin Crab, the Merlin Goat, the Merlin Rabbit, right? 20 cards, pulled them from the pantry. These are like the appetizer. You always want these cards. You just can't always have them. Maybe they're in another deck. Maybe you just want to fill slots with something a little bit more experimental.
Yeah, they're always good. They're like mozzarella sticks.
Yeah.
You never don't want to get mozzarella sticks, but sometimes you don't need all the mozzarella sticks. But they're really good.
Yeah. Another package that I pulled, something that was looking tasty, sitting on the shelves, bodyguards. Now, if our game plan generally is to play a bunch of Titans, and the Titans seem to work better at a glance when there are multiple Titans on the board, as we have cards that affect all of them at once, then we want to protect them somehow. We want to keep them around. Maybe some bodyguards would help with that. You know, this is like, I'd liken this to the acid in the dish. You need it to make that protein sing, right? To soften it up, to make it taste as good as it possibly can. You need that sprinkle of acid.
For sure. A little lemon.
Little lemon on there, right? So some bodyguards. I pulled some generically good removal cards because we're playing Steel, right? This kind of falls in the same package of Mim and Merlin. It's like, I don't know, like a sauce for the dish, right?
Yeah.
We'll see how much we need, but we know it's good. We know it's going to make things taste better. It's just a question of whether or not this dish calls for that bit of sauce on the side. Then I love to always have a card that I don't think is good, but that I would like to be surprised by.
Sure, that makes
Something
sense.
fun, something I haven't played before. Why not? You're building your own deck, you know? How about those fun reactions when that card that your opponent has never seen before hits the table? You know?
Yeah.
One of the best feelings you can have in a tournament is to play a card and then watch a really good player have to read that card.
Ooh,
You
wow.
know, what does that one do? I have not seen that played against me ever, right?
Yeah, you got to throw a dive bomb in there that nobody's playing.
Oh, don't play dive bomb, but yeah. Like anything besides dive bomb, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. You know, the garnish, if you will. Maybe it's 1 or 2 copies of that card, but something fun, you know? You're building your own deck. Why not? Surprise yourself. Surprise your opponent.
Love that.
Then, as the last package of ingredients that I pulled for our Titan deck, just some curve filler. As I looked at the cost curve, which you can see on Dreamborn. If you make a deck on dreamborn.ink, it will show you your curve, your bell curve of your deck, right? So I saw that I have too few 1 and 2 cost characters. So you fill it up. It's like the starch. That's the rice, you know? It's the little pasta, the bed of pasta that keeps the whole thing afloat. Ties everything together, right? Fills you up.
Love that. Look at all these beautiful ingredients that we have out here.
So I pulled all of those ingredients from the pantry. And this is what you might do, right? Just pull a million cards, lay them all out in front of you by cost, and take a look at things and say, okay, you know, this is a lot of cards that I would like to play. But obviously you want to trim down to 60 cards. And this, as a side note, is something you do want to do. You want to have 60 cards in your deck.
Right.
And for every card that you add over 60, you're adding a card that isn't as good as the previous cards in the deck, the cards that have already been added, right? The 61st card isn't going to be as good as the first 60.
Sure, that makes sense.
So we want to cut this down to 60, and we are at 124 right now. So we're just going to go one by one, cost by cost, and make some decisions. These are in groups of 4, right? So we're going to eventually get this down to probably 15 to 18 unique cards at 2 to 4 copies apiece. So, and the 1 cost slot here for characters, we have Chernobog's followers. When they quest, you can banish them to draw a card. We've got Olaf, who's just a vanilla 1/3. We've got Pascal, who can be given evasive if there's another character in play. And we've got Captain Hook, who's a 1/2, but who has Challenger 2. Now, what do you want to ask yourself is, if we want to cut, say, 2 of these out of our deck, which 2 are then going to help us the most with our game plan? Our game plan, which is to
Play Titans.
play as many Titans as we possibly can.
Yes.
Looking at these 4 cards, I look at Pascal as somebody who's a little more aggressive in terms of grabbing you lore, right? If there's any opposing evasives, he's not going to trade favorably, right? And we're not out to rush our lore total up.
No.
Right? So Pascal seems to be one to me that doesn't fit immediately, and we can cut him.
Yeah, we don't need him.
He's a good card, not for this deck.
Right.
Then we've got something like Olaf, who's a 1/3 vanilla, is fine.
He's got a nice butt. He's got a 3 butt, which is really cool for a 1-drop.
Absolutely. Now, if you are playing something that depends on having other characters on the board, like the Mim package, if you're playing Snake, then you want something to bounce. So that could be good. But let's think for a second. We've got all these Mim and Merlin cards that we know are good already.
Yes.
And we're building a homebrew here. And maybe our existing Mim and Merlin cards are in our net-decked Ruby Amethyst.
Sure.
And we don't have 8 copies of everything.
Of course not.
So maybe we want to just go ahead and cut the Mim and Merlin package.
Sure, and then we're not thinking about that. We don't have to base keeping Olaf off of that if we're not even doing it.
Now, would the Mim and Merlin package make this deck better?
Yeah.
Absolutely it would. But part of building your deck can be having fun and the practical realities of not having so many copies of all of these cards, which happens all the time. We're on a budget.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to make our deck build a little bit more expeditious here. And we are just going to go ahead and cut all of our Olafs right out, which would leave us with Chernobog's followers and Captain Hook.
Sure.
Chernobog's followers helps us in the early game by contesting the board, and it draws us cards in the late game if we don't need that and want to find some more Titans.
Yeah. Captain Hook is a really strong 1-cost card, too.
Absolutely. Can trade up into cards that cost more often, right? It can take out a lot of 2 and 3 cost characters that have 3 willpower. So a great include, something that's going to keep the boards sparse for our Titans.
Love that.
To wreak havoc. All right, looking at the 2 cost character slot here now, we've got Kuzco, draws us some cards.
Love him.
We've just cut Madam Mim Snake. We don't need her. She's in another deck. That's fine. We're going to make it strong without her. I pulled Pinocchio, talkative puppet, who does some exerting, right? When he enters play, you can exert a character. Kita, who's a bodyguard, helps us along that front. And then we've got the Huntsman, who quests for 2 and helps us with some card draw / filtering, right? So some different options here. We've got a couple card draws, we've got bodyguards, we've got utility with Pinocchio. What's going to help us with our game plan?
Yeah, well, our main game plan is to play Titans.
Absolutely.
So I would think having a 2-drop bodyguard like Kita could be really good for this deck.
Absolutely. We're going to start dropping Titans, hopefully on turn 3. So having a 2-cost bodyguard to start paving the way, potentially really helpful.
Yeah.
So we'll keep Kita in. Now, out of the Huntsman, Kuzco, and Pinocchio, which one is also going to help us the most? Let's cut one more 2-cost entirely.
Now, what does the Huntsman do again?
The Huntsman, when he quests, you can draw a card, and then you have to discard any card from your hand. And he quests for 2. Now, that's helpful to help us find some Titans, and it's pretty aggressive with that 2 lore. But alternatively, we have something like Pinocchio, who can counters Ursula, say, right? And there's other options too, right? There's also Kuzco, who is inkable and who draws us the card, right? So we have 2 card draw options and then the utility option in Pinocchio.
Personally, I like the utility option of Pinocchio.
You do. Now, what if I told you that one of our Titans has the ability to exert a chosen character? When you exert it, would that change your mind?
It definitely would.
So, something that you can consider is redundancy in your deck, right? So you don't want to load up on too much of one kind of tech. If we are keeping Hydros, and we definitely are, then I think it's an easy cut to eliminate Pinocchio.
Sure.
Who has a very, very similar ability, right? And who is uninkable.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. So we'll
Cut
get
the
rid of
puppet.
our Pinocchio because we have another card that already does the same thing. Now, between Kuzco and the Huntsman, who do we like? We have the more aggressive Huntsman versus the more solid Kuzco.
I don't know that we need to be aggressive in this deck. Isn't that the same reason that we cut Pascal?
I agree. Let's cut the Huntsman, which would leave us in our 2-cost slots with Kita and Kuzco. We have some nice bodyguard ability, and we have a frightened llama who replaces himself when he is chased away.
Love it.
That leaves us with 8 cards in our 2-cost character slot, which is a totally fine, acceptable number.
Yeah,
Then we look at our 3-cost cards. Here we have Hydros, who we know is going to stay.
definitely.
We've cut Madam Mim because, well, she's in another deck, say. We've also cut our crab friend, Merlin Crab, because he's also in another deck. Would they be great? Sure. But we're going to go ahead and talk about some other options. We've got Maleficent, Sorceress, a 2/2 who, when you play her, draws a card. We've got Little John, who's another bodyguard, a 2/4. He's got a big ol' bare butt,
Mm-hmm.
and he can also challenge evasive characters, which is great. And we have the Prince, who's another bodyguard with resist 1, quests for 2. Few options here, right? Now, we might want to keep 3 of these 4, right?
Sure.
We've eliminated the fox, so we're left with Hydros, who we're definitely keeping. So we can keep 2, say, out of Maleficent, Little John, and the Prince. And that would leave us with 12 3-cost cards, this cost slot where we want to have the most available, right?
Yes.
Now, Maleficent helps us find more Titans. Always great. Little John helps us deal with evasives, and the Prince helps us by questing a little bit more and also has resist.
I personally think Maleficent is an automatic keep.
Great.
Because she does card draw, which we haven't kept from any other card yet. She's reliable. We've liked her in other decks. I think she's just like a solid yes.
Perfect. That leaves us with choosing one of either Little John or the Prince. This is splitting hairs to some degree. So when in doubt here, look at what's played in the meta and which card is going to respond best to it,
Sure.
right? So when I look at that resist 1 on the Prince, and I think about how steel is so prevalent, we just saw so many steel decks played in some of these big recent tournaments, right?
Yes.
So being able to resist Grab Your Sword, only taking 1 from Grab Your Sword and not taking any from Tinkerbell, it's really helpful. He quests for 2. I'd lean towards playing the Prince in this instance. That said, if you're ever in a situation you're torn between the 2 cards, you could play 2 of each of them and see which one you like better. Try it out, right? There's probably a right answer, right? An answer that's going to be best against the most decks in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now it's probably the Prince, but that little bit of extra questing and the resist against the steel that's so common, I'd probably play the Prince. That said, play the card that's new that you haven't played before, or play 2 of each. And that way you get to see which one you like better over a course of games, right?
Yeah, best of both worlds. Let's try 2 Little Johns and 2 the Princes.
Perfect. Moving on to our 4-cost slot.
Nice.
We've cut our goats. They're in another deck. Are they amazing?
Yes.
They are the goat, but we have put them in our meta deck. So we're going to eliminate them entirely, which leaves us with a few options here. We've got Donald Duck, Musketeer. We've got Lythos, who ain't going anywhere.
He's a Titan.
He's a Titan, folks. And we've got Namari, who is another bodyguard, an uninkable bodyguard, who has the ability that she can attack or challenge ready characters. Occasionally useful. So, Lythos isn't going anywhere. Let's choose between Donald Duck and Namari.
Now, this breaks my heart a little bit. I love Donald Duck Musketeer.
I love him as well. He's adorable.
He's a great card.
He really is. And so is Namari to some degree. I mean, she's a bodyguard. She does think she is uninkable. She's she looks neat.
Yeah, and she can attack ready characters. That's the most appealing thing to me, especially in this meta, is that she can attack people who are ready. She
Sure.
can come in and gank somebody who your opponent's trying to protect.
Pretty nice if you've got an opposing Ursula that you're facing down, maybe you need to take that out before they can combo off. There's some ways in this deck that you can challenge characters, take care of combo pieces before they're able to combo off. She can help with that a bit. She is uninkable. She is situational. On the bright side, she's probably in your binder.
Yeah.
You're probably not playing her. So if you're building a little homebrew deck, she might be the kind of thing that gives you a little boost and is fun to play around with if you unpacked her and have been frustrated. This might be the deck for her.
Yeah, she just might be perfect right now, especially because we haven't had any other uninkables up to this point. So we're not really adding too much to that total. And you might want to save your Donald Duck Musketeer for a Musketeer deck.
Absolutely. Donald is inkable, which is important. He does have 1 extra willpower, and he can also challenge evasive characters.
Sure.
So if you're running into one of those budget evasive decks, which is a possibility if you have a little homebrew, if you're running into a Ruby Emerald evasive deck, Donald might help you out. In this case, let's use Namari because she's cool and these cards are so similar.
Yeah, bye Donald Duck.
Moving on to our 5-cost slot. Now, this is already loaded with some of the best cards in the deck for characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got Stratos and we've got Pyros, who are kind of your 2 win conditions. You've got Stratos is the Titan who is evasive and who also has the ability Cyclone. You can exert him to gain lore equal to the number of Titan characters you have in play.
Mm-hmm.
It can be tremendous. I mean, if you have 3 or 4 Titans out, and you're able to then ready Stratos and use them a couple times, that's game ending, right?
Yeah.
It can be really, really powerful.
He's awesome.
So it's a win condition. And you also have Pyros, who is another sort of win condition, or helps you at least control the board to get to your win condition. He's an inkable 5/4 for 5. During your turn, when he banishes another character in a challenge, you can ready a chosen character. Can be himself, can be a Hades. Lots of different options, right? So he's a combo enabler as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 are staying around. They're not going anywhere. They're
No.
probably the best cards in the deck and the reason that you're running this list at all.
Yeah, they're the reason for the season.
I also pulled from the pantry another ingredient, a little spice. I've got the new Maleficent, Mistress of All Evil.
Now, we haven't played her at all. She's one of the cards from this expansion that we've never seen, never gotten.
She's one of 3 cards that we've never pulled, right?
Yeah.
So, this is something that I threw on the list because I think she's interesting. She draws cards. She potentially fills a cost slot, right? She does something that the other cards in the deck don't do. Something that I really like about her is that she can potentially move damage off of your Pyros and use that damage to eliminate a threat on the opposing side.
That is nice.
A little bit of card draw, super vulnerable to removal.
Yes.
Easily removed.
Yeah, she's tough in that way.
But fun. Now, this would give, if we kept Maleficent in here, that would leave us with 12 cards in the 5 cost slot. And we had 12 cards in our 3 cost slot, which we know we want it to be the top of our curve.
Yeah.
So she's a pretty easy cut. But maybe we want to try a couple of her, right? We think that she might be cool, and we're interested in seeing what she could do because we've never seen her played, right? Why not? And the art's amazing. And we want to see, let's give her some justice. Let's keep 2 copies in. Yeah?
Love that.
So now we've got, if we look at our final cost slot here, we have this kind of 6+ group. And for this, I topped out at Hades, who costs 6.
Yeah.
The only character card that we have that costs more than 5 is Hades, right? So this is the other end of the curve, right? We're dipping down here. We had our 12 at 3 cost. We have 10 at 5, and we go down to 4 at 6. And we have, at the other end, we have 8 at the 1 cost slot, right? So that's a bit of the shaping of the curve so far. Not too bad. That also leaves us with 50 characters to start.
Which is great.
And we know from our chat previously that that's a pretty good number to be at.
Yeah, and we want to keep all those Hades in there.
Absolutely. Hades is the combo enabler, right?
Exactly.
So we have this cool combo. You know, if you just shove a bunch of Titans together in a deck, and you've tried this before, you might have been so fortunate as to have hit the combo of having Pyros and Stratos and Hades, and maybe Lithos out there too, where you can give Pyros resist, and then you can use Stratos to gain a bunch of lore. You use Pyros to ready Hades, and then Hades ready Stratos, and you can go over and over again until you gain a whole bunch of lore, right?
Yeah, we've been so lucky to hit that a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
And it's been really fun. So Hades is definitely in there. ×4, he's inkable, so he's easy to put in. And if you draw him too early, you can just ink him. Great card. All right, let's move on. Let's just move down the list here. Let's look at our actions and see what we might want to play here.
Yeah.
I pulled a whole bunch, 24 of them, including songs, right? Songs and actions. I pulled Charge, which is a little one-time boost to give a character Challenger and Resist, +2. Pick a Fight, which lets us challenge ready characters. I've got Rise of the Titans. Take care of a location or an item.
Beautiful.
And Smash, just deal 3 damage on demand. I've also got a few songs. We've got Friends on the Other Side for some card draw, and Then Along Came Zeus for some removal / location control, right?
Yeah, Then Along Came Zeus is an awesome card.
It is, but the question is, will it be right for this deck? All right, so let's look at these. Let's see what fits, what doesn't fit, what's too niche, right? Now, let's talk about something like Pick a Fight, which is uninkable. So that's already something that we have to consider. It's a cost, right?
Yes.
The reason I pulled it from the pantry is because I thought it would pair very nicely with a card like Pyros. Pyros would gain the ability to challenge ready characters for an entire turn, and so could potentially wipe out a bunch of previously safe characters. Similarly, Charge would let Pyros take out a bunch of characters in succession with that extra challenger and the resist that he could gain, right?
Right.
We also, though, have a few other cards that accomplish similar things, right? We talked about how Lithos gives us the ability to exert characters who are ready, or Hydros, gives you the ability to challenge ready characters. And Charge is the same thing that Lithos provides, which is that extra resist, the ability to take out multiple characters at once. Might be a little bit redundant, right?
I've got a feeling that it could be redundant. And we kept Namari, who can challenge ready characters as well.
Absolutely. So Pick a Fight's an easy cut because that's uninkable, right?
Yeah.
So we're just going to go ahead and remove those. And then as for Charge, if Lithos is already giving us our resist, then not as crucial to have Charge in the deck, right? Anytime you put an action in your deck, it's a significant cost because it's something that you play and then it's gone, right? It doesn't stay on the board. So it has to have a large impact for you to play it.
Of course.
And there are only so many characters that you'd want to play it on, right? So if you're waiting around for Pyros, that can be difficult.
Yes. Now, keeping Rise of the Titans as an action card is so thematic
It is.
and beautiful.
Which is perhaps enough reason to just keep the card.
I think so.
Let's keep 2 of them. How about that?
Love it.
Super thematic, which would leave us in our action slots with 2 Rise of the Titans, and we have 4 Smash still. We've got our 4 Along Came Zeus and our 4 Friends on the other side. Now, let's talk about Friends on the other side. A card that's very, very difficult to cut.
It's so good. It's consistently good. Your characters can sing it.
Yep. So I don't think that's going anywhere.
No, I think it has to stay.
Then we're looking at our Along Came Zeuses, which we like because they can hit locations and characters. But if we're playing Rise of the Titans, are they as good? And also, do we have enough characters to sing Along Came Zeus for the extra tempo advantage?
Sure, and it is uninkable.
Right. So a cost. Same thing with Smash, right? Smash is a little easier to play. It hits Ursula's, and you always have the ability to ink it.
But it does not hit locations.
Right. But we do have Rise of the Titans in that same cost slot. Difficult decisions to be made here. My instinct would tell me that because we're keeping Rise of the Titans, because it's cheaper, and because it's inkable, the extra utility of Along Came Zeus hitting locations perhaps isn't as strong.
Yeah, I think it's maybe not for this deck. Maybe it goes off with Donald Duck to another deck somewhere.
We also have Pyros and the ability to challenge characters and exert them in the same turn. So doing 5 damage to a ready character isn't quite as important for our deck, right?
Right.
Which would leave us with our smashes for the early game to make sure we don't get blown out before our Titans get online.
Love it.
We've got 2 Rise of the Titans, and we've got our friends on the other side. So we're left with a total of 10 actions, which is a little bit more reasonable.
Looking good to me.
Now we look at items. I pulled 2 items for us to consider here.
Yeah.
One of them, very, very spicy.
Very spicy.
A little dash of red pepper flakes on this dish, I'd say. The croquet mallet.
The croquet mallet.
And,
what does that even do?
It's a uninkable 1-cost item. You banish it to give a character rush this turn.
Nice.
Now, my thinking is that when you play Pyros, you might want to immediately use Pyros to catch up, right? To find parity on the board if you've fallen behind at all. Giving that extra little boost of speed to the deck might let us get back into a game.
Sure.
And I've never seen it played.
No, me neither.
And it's probably a really bad card, but it could be fun in this deck specifically.
It could have that effect you were talking about where you play it and your opponent has to read it because they've never seen it before.
Absolutely. The other item I pulled from our pantry here is Mouse Armor.
Ooh.
A 2-cost uninkable item. You exert it to give a chosen character resist +1 until the start of your next turn. So it works through your opponent's turn. Great card.
A great card.
Really, really fun. I think a lot of us underrated this card when we first looked at it, but can be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be especially powerful on bodyguard characters. Forcing your opponent to challenge into a bodyguard that has resist can make it really, really difficult for them. And it makes cards like the Prince even better.
Yeah, love the Prince.
Now, would we ever want to play 4 croquet mallets in the deck?
I guess not.
So let's cut 2 of them out to
Yes.
start. And let's look at where we are with our totals. Let's say we want to keep Mouse Armor and 2 croquet mallets, right? So that leaves us with a total of 66 cards.
Not bad.
Not bad, down from 124 or something like that, right? So we're pretty close to a deck here. Now we start looking at for those last little cuts, the last few things that are going to make the deck sing, right? You want to look for things that are redundant or that are too situational, that won't have enough of an impact, things that don't fit in your curve, right?
Yeah, where can we trim the fat here?
And we also want to do an uninkable check, right? If we keep all 6 of these preposterous items, that leaves us with 6 there in our item category. We have our 4 Namaris still, which would bring us up to 10 uninkables. So we've done very well on our uninkable count, not something that we really have to worry about right now.
Right.
It's always better, it should be considered, but we're not going to go over 10, so we're in okay shape.
Yeah, we're not adding any more uninkables, that's for sure.
So we have to cut our 6 cards here. I like to start with the non-character cards when making cuts. I think we've done a good job of having a reasonable character curve, and I think that characters are the least situational cards. You always want to draw characters and make sure that you can play characters every turn, right? Whereas playing only an item or only some actions often will make you fall behind in the game.
Yeah, this is quite a character-dependent deck.
Let's look at our actions first. We still have our 2 Rise of the Titans, our 4 Smashes, and our 4 Friends on the other side. Now, of these, the card that is the most situational is Rise of the Titans, but is potentially really swingy, and we only have 2 of them. So maybe we want to keep that and try it out to go with our Titan deck.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the fact that it's so thematic is what makes me want to keep it in the deck.
Let's cut our Smashes perhaps down to 2.
Yep, that seems
Great.
correct to me.
We'll see how it goes. And now when you're playing this deck, you might decide, this is the same phenomenon that we had with Little John and the Princes before, you might decide that Rise of the Titans is really good and can never be cut, and you might decide that Smash is really good and you need to add more copies, or you might decide that they both stink and you need to cut them both. But for now, a couple copies, so that hopefully you see them, hopefully you figure out if they're good or not.
Yeah, sometimes you need to make the dish and then taste it to know what you want to change.
A little more salt here, a little bit of lemon squeezed here, whatever
Yes.
the case may be.
Exactly.
All right, so let's look down at our item slot. We've made 2 cuts. We have to cut 4 more cards. Now, to me, immediately the decision is, do we cut 2 croquet mallets and 2 mouse armors, or do we cut all 4 mouse armors?
No, I don't think we cut all 4 mouse armors. I do like mouse armor. I think it's been a good card for us in the past.
Okay.
I think it'd be awesome in this deck. I think we do the first option, cut out 2 mouse armors and say, croquet mallet, maybe we'll see you another day.
Bye, croquet mallet. You're not a good card.
Well, you're just not right now.
Right. And so, this is it. Sometimes it's hard. You have to kill your darling. Sometimes you have to make those difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, take out the bad cards and you'll have a better deck.
Yes.
You'll often hear, it's so funny, I love when I hear a really strong card game player say, oh, this was the deck before and then I took out the bad cards. And that's why I won.
Yeah, right.
If you ever need to go back to basics, just say, what are the bad cards? And then take them out.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the legendary Maleficent is a card that might fall into this category. This deck, Namari is one that might fall into this category.
Sure.
With this deck, there might just be bad cards that would be best served somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if we were playing the Merlin Rabbit package, then Namari would be an easy swap, right? But as it is, we're trying things out. We're finding cards that fit our theme that we maybe haven't played that much.
Yeah.
We're having some fun, but we are still adhering to certain principles, like cost curves, right? Like watching our inkable counts, like figuring out which cards might overperform in this deck relative to another deck.
Definitely.
Great. So there we go. We were left with a 60-card deck, and I'll go through it here, say what we ended up with as a little recap. We have Chernobog's Followers and Captain Hook as our 1-drops. We've got Kuzco and Kita as our 2s. We've got Hydros, Maleficent, and then a split of Little Johns and Princes, some bodyguards in our 3-drop slot. For 4 drops, we have Lythos, of course, and Nimari. For 5 drops, Stratos and Pyros are bombs, the best cards in our deck. And trying out the new legendary Maleficent. Why not? She can heal up her Titans a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, we're capping things off with our Hades. For actions, we've got a split of Rise of the Titans and Smash, along with the full 4 friends on the other side. And then a spicy pair of mouse armors to keep our Titans around.
I think this is beautiful.
I think it's a fun little deck. I think we might have to give it a spin. Now, we hope that you enjoyed this little segment. Give us some feedback if this was helpful to you. We really hope that this helps anybody who is new to TCGs, new to deck building. If this is something that you'd like to hear more about, let us know.
Definitely. And if you have any ideas for some kind of crazy niche deck that you want to see us build, or that you have an idea for an ingredient, if you want an all hey deck or something, just shout it out and we'll cook one up.
We'll cook one up. We cook to order here at Lorcana.
Waiter, what do we have on the menu? Waiter, excuse me.
Yes, madame.
Oh, hello again.
Hello.
What do we happen to have on the menu for dessert tonight?
Aujourd'hui, we have bet you didn't know about this.
Oh, bet you didn't know about Diz.
Oui.
Very nice.
All right, Katie, you're going to tell us about Alan Irwin Menken.
Yeah, I just put his middle name in there for fun. No one ever uses his middle name.
Is that really his middle name?
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No. I didn't know that one fact.
I'm surprised because I feel like you know everything about Alan Menken.
I like to think so.
For everybody listening, Katie doesn't really do research because she doesn't need to when we talk about these segments, when we do what Bet You Didn't Know About Diz. These are just things that she knows.
Yeah.
She's a Disney encyclopedia of sorts.
Yeah, these are just things in my brain. All that I do is I listen to show tunes all day long. And all I've ever done is listen to show tunes all day long. My favorite things in life are musical theater, Disney, and food. And it might be in that order.
Hence this podcast.
Yeah, it's just a part of my brain. So today, for Bet You Didn't Know About Diz, I'm just going to kind of spill some tea about Alan Menken.
I'm really excited for this because I am also a huge Alan Menken fan. He wrote the music in the musical that changed my life.
Yes.
I'm somebody who works in theater. And it was a high school production of Little Shop of Horrors that made me want to do theater. And he wrote the music for that.
Yeah, Alan Menken is the bee's knees. Alan Menken's won 8 Oscars.
Whoa!
He's also an EGOT recipient, so he's won like an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. He's incredible. Alan Irwin Menken was born in 1949. Now, did I know his middle name? No. But did I know what his parents do? Yes. His dad, who is still with us, is a dentist, or I think he was a dentist. I don't think he still is a dentist.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. He was also a pianist. Alan Menken's mom is an actor and a dancer and a playwright. So he grew up in a very musical, artsy kind of home. He lived in New York, so he was close to all those things, that world anyways. He started off Broadway. He started playing in clubs in New York. He did a show called God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater, which was his first like Broadway debut, I guess you could say.
Is that based on the Vonnegut novel?
Yes.
Which is a novel that is very strange, and I'm trying to picture what that play would be like.
It didn't do well. And we all have to start from somewhere.
It's a hilarious book. I could see it being funny, but it jumps around so much, and it seems like it'd be really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily Alan Menken's fault. Broadway in the late 70s, which is when this is happening, was just mostly a disaster. You know, the good plays on Broadway were plays about Jesus and Godspell and Jesus Christ Superstar and all that kind of jazz. So like those shows are fine and whatever, but that was where Broadway was peaking, I guess you could say, like in that time period. Not just a dark time for musical theater. But then, like you said, Alan Menken wrote Little Shop of Horrors, which started off Broadway and was a big smash hit. If you've never listened to Little Shop of Horrors, do yourself a favor and just listen to it now. You can listen to any version. It doesn't matter. It's so good. He wrote that with Alan Menken. He wrote that with Howard Ashman, who he collaborated with on a lot of things, which we'll get to in a second. Howard Ashman is a genius lyricist. We could do a whole Bet You Didn't Know About Diz about him, too. Anyway, so he had a whole series of flops. The first thing that he did with Disney was a Wonderful World of Disney made-for-TV movie called Polly.
Okay.
You ever heard of Polly?
I've never heard of Polly.
Yeah, so Polly was like a version of Pollyanna. You know Pollyanna?
No.
All right, well, we'll get into that some other day, but...
Give me God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater any day over whatever Pollyanna is.
Oh, Pollyanna's like an American classic.
Is it?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Well, you know, but Polly isn't. So he did that. But anyways, he's Disney adjacent. He's living his life Disney adjacent. And in 1987, they got him and Howard Ashman to come on to write the music and lyrics for The Little Mermaid.
Oh.
Yeah. And The Little Mermaid is the beginning of what many people call the Disney Renaissance period. It's all those movies that came out when, us millennials were growing up and really shifted Disney movies forever. It was kind of like the second coming of the Walt Disney kind of nut that was in the company at the beginning.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. it's tough when people compare people to Walt Disney, right? And I wouldn't necessarily compare Alan Menken to Walt Disney, but certainly him and Howard Ashman working together to make the music and lyrics was like what many people would call like, a little second coming of Walt Disney in a way.
It was transformative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
transformative to the company, but also transformative to musical theater as a whole.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, people talk recently about Hamilton changing the art form of musical theater, right? And making it into that more contemporary rap style and the almost operetta version of musical theater that Hamilton is. Whenever we talk to people and we're like, we work in theater, people always bring up Hamilton. It's
Right.
it's one of those things. It's
Change
a milestone.
the game. Yeah.
And that's definitely what, Disney movie musicals did. They changed how other musicals on Broadway are written. They made a whole, generation of people who grew up watching that kind of musical theater storytelling. And that's what makes Alan Menken different, right? Is that he didn't write the lyrics, he wrote the music, but all of the movies that he writes the music for are so driven by the story, which is something that I think gets lost a lot in musical theater. A lot of times the songs are written to be contemporary, to be poppy, to make voices sound a certain way that's appealing, that sounds hot, that sounds cool. And a lot of times I think, especially recently, musicals kind of like lose track of what the point of it is, where they should just be telling a story, right? And that's the kind of stuff that you get from Alan Menken. Alan Menken brought us The Little Mermaid. He brought us Beauty and the Beast. He brought us Newsies. So good.
Wow. Super underrated.
Yeah, Newsies, the original movie, and then brought it to Broadway also. Aladdin, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Enchanted, Tangled, Gallivant.
A great little underrated show.
Yep, the short-lived ABC musical comedy,
Yeah.
which I wish had lived forever.
It was really, really good.
Yeah, it was really good. We had only been dating for a couple weeks when I showed you Gallivant.
Yeah, we binged it. We watched the whole thing in like a night and a half. Right?
Yeah, it's so good. That's another thing. I don't even know if it's on Disney Plus or if it exists anywhere. But if you can find it, Gallivant is really funny and it ends on a cliffhanger. So we'll never know.
No, really quickly, you told me a story about Alan Menken and the Little Mermaid. So that was the kind of the watershed moment, right? It was the Little Mermaid. And it really struck me because I think it showed his will and his the creative force that he brought to that movie in particular.
Sure.
With Part of Your World, with the writing of Part of Your World.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost connected more to a Howard Ashman story, but I'll lump them in together. Howard Ashman, unfortunately, passed away from AIDS in 1991, so he wasn't able to continue working with Alan Menken on a lot of these films. The last one that he did was Aladdin, which premiered posthumously for him. And the Aladdin was kind of filled in with lyrics by Tim Rice. But to go back to Part of Your World was on the cutting room floor when they were making Little Mermaid.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was just like, Disney was really nervous about having a hit, and they were being like really over analytical with what was working with audiences and what wasn't. So they did some testing with audiences where they came in and they watched like a rough cut of Little Mermaid, and it like wasn't fully animated. It was kind of like if you remember those DVDs where you could watch the special features and you would see like deleted scenes,
Black and white sketches of
Yes.
songs, sure.
and it's like not really there. And that's what they showed these audiences, and kids didn't like that part of the movie because it just didn't connect with them, and it was a slower song and whatever. They liked Under the Sea more than that. Like,
Right.
Which is fine. I get it. If you ask a 7-year-old if they like the black and white, chunky version of a ballad, or if they like that of a up-tempo, they're going to pick the up-tempo. So Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was new to the company at the time, wanted to cut Part of Your World. And Howard Ashman is the one that has this sick quote, but Howard Ashman said that he could cut the song over his dead body.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is awesome. And they didn't cut the song. And
Thank goodness.
yeah, and it's the, emotional core of the whole thing.
The most crucial song of that entire film.
Yeah, it's the I Want song. I mean, that's something that existed obviously before.
Like My Boy Bill and Carousel, which is a flawed show, but
yeah, right. Right, which is like a musical theater thing that exists, having an I Want song. But that's something that I think that people had forgotten about, right? Like there's you can watch the little like speech that Howard Ashman gives to all the animators when he's introducing Under the Sea to them, and he talks about the I Want song and like how important that is in musical theater. That's just it's the core of the song, and I feel like I could go on forever and ever about
Sure.
these kinds of things.
Well, so tell us a little bit about, you talked about how, he chooses the music very carefully to accompany whatever's going on with the plot and whatever's going on with the characters. Like, what does that mean? How does the music on a technical level, like how does it reinforce the story?
Sure.
Like, what's an example of that?
Yeah. So when you're talking about musical theater, it should be musical storytelling. And I think a lot of times that, especially in theater, it gets split into either acting or singing. And they're not connected, and they should be connected. It's the same thing. So that all starts with how the music is written. So if you're looking at a song like Go the Distance, right, with, Hercules singing about wanting to achieve his goals, it's got that like soaring kind of melody like you would hear from a superhero, like a Superman, kind of like like it has that behind it, which is supposed to influence the acting, and it should influence the storytelling. If you think about a song like Bells of Notre Dame, where the ending melody goes up and down, right? Like the bells, 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 like it has that bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, that you don't even notice that you're hearing. But if you're studying the musical theater end of it, right, you can hear those bells in it. If you're thinking about Belle, the reprise in Beauty and the Beast, that, I want adventure in the great wide summer, and she comes out into the big open. The phrases that she's singing are open. The chords are open, right? We've got those major chords that make you feel like there's opportunity, there's open spaces. So that even without the lyrics, if you were just humming that, right, and she went up to a big space and started spinning around and went ba 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 ba, you would still get that same idea. And I mean, you can go deeper than that too, and you can go into that she's repeating the melody that all the people in the town are singing about her, and like now she's on her own, and you know, it's all in there. He's amazing. He's perfect. You can't go wrong. I recommend you do yourself a favor and just Google Alan Menken singing his own songs. There's so many medleys of him singing his own songs, and it's so cool. And it's even cool in the times where like he forgets the lyrics because he's just like into the music. He's not a great singer. He doesn't have to be. Just the expression of his piano playing, like everything. It's all in there. I want to meet Alan Menken. I made a whole collage of him when I was in high school. In high school. This is not when I was like in middle school and weird or like in elementary school. No, in high school for an art class I was taking, we had to make a collage, and I made a collage of Alan Menken and all the shows he'd done because he's so good.
How was that received by your teacher?
She loved it. She was like, "This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Who is this?" And I was like, "He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's the GOAT. I've had dreams about meeting him." And it's just very normal. And he's just like, "Hi." And I'm like, "Oh, hey." And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, "Yeah." So, who knows?
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday we'll have him on the podcast.
Really quickly, bringing this to Lorcana.
Sure.
If we can.
Yeah.
His name is on a whole bunch of cards.
Yeah.
You can see Alan Menken's name in the bottom right corner of a whole bunch of song cards, which is both fitting and accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, and Howard Ashman.
Yeah.
Who's writing the lyrics, yeah.
So next time you pick up, off the top of my head, I'm guessing I Can Go the Distance and Part of Your World, take a look at the bottom right corner. You'll see Alan Menken's name.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Oh, what a delicious meal.
Yum.
We've eaten well tonight. I think I could go for a nice one, maybe a little cup of Irish coffee or something like that.
Sure.
A
little post-dinner cup of joe.
Yeah, a little dessert beverage. Something to send us on our way.
What have you cooked up for us? Did you make a dream card for this coffee?
Well, I'm your mixologist this evening, and you're going to be served a lovely little dream card, as is my wont. Tonight, a fitting tribute to our hero of the evening, Alan Menken.
Yes.
We have an item card. It is the Bells of Notre Dame. It is a sapphire item. It's an inkable 2-cost card, and it has the ability Mysterious Bell Ringer,
Mm.
which says, at the start of your turn, if you control a character, gain 1 lore.
Wow.
And the flavor text at the bottom here is, to the big bells as loud as the thunder, to the little bells soft as a psalm. Now, I wanted this card to push item decks. I think that item decks have been really inconsistent, hard to pull off, right? But there are so many cards that key off of items and having multiple items in play.
Yeah.
I think this would instantly be one of, if not the strongest item in all of Lorcana.
Yeah, I love this card.
It's super pushed, right? But it's a reason to play item decks. It's like a kind of item that would make the deck sing, I think. It gives you the reason.
Literally make it ring.
Make it ring. Absolutely, right? And the more you get of them, all of a sudden you're putting your opponent on that clock, right? Every turn the bells ring. Every single turn you're getting that lore, but you need somebody to ring them. You need that Quasimodo up in the chapel.
Yeah, I
Right.
love it.
So yeah, a quick one this week. I think it's thematic. It's overpowered for sure. It should probably cost 3, but you know what? When you're making dream cards, you can do whatever you want.
You know that's right. It would be great to see some Hunchback of Notre Dame cards.
It really would. When we had Hellfire last week,
Yeah.
or Burning Desire, and this week Bells of Notre Dame, I think it'd be really cool to introduce that movie into Lorcana. I think they will eventually, and it
Mhm.
would be really cool to give item decks that really simple, clear win condition. Right, like we have the dime, which is tricky to pull off and really conditional.
Yeah.
This would be, that every turn ring that you could set up early. You lose a little bit of tempo, right? And you have to keep characters on the board, so you can't just cheese out a win by having a bunch of items. But it would be really, really fun to introduce that kind of power to an item deck.
It would be so fun. I love that card. Nice job with our little after dinner coffee.
Yum. Sends us on our way with a little boost, huh?
Yummo.
Episode 4 comes to a close.
Wow.
Wow. Chock full of goodies.
Chock full of goodies. That was fun.
It really was. I
Yeah.
learned so much about Alan Menken, who, was an absolute Disney hero.
I learned so much about deck building.
Next time, we're going to introduce a new kind of segment.
Ooh.
That will be fun.
That will be new and new.
We also might look at some overrated and underrated cards from Inklands.
Yeah, what snacks are tasting good? What snacks were recommended to us that we don't like so much?
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be attending my first Inklands constructed event this week,
Yay!
which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to that. You can't make it because you have dress rehearsal for a show at school.
Yes.
But we'll give you a little recap from that event. I think I'm going to be playing some kind of Ursula deck.
Yeah, how can you not? She's the
Because
coolest.
she's so cool.
Yeah.
And it'll probably have Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo in it because that is hilarious. If not efficient.
It's awesome. When you can pop that off, it's great.
Yeah, when you can bounce Goat with Bibbidi and Ursula and just gain a quick, 5 lore, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how you do on Thursday. And we'll be sure to post about it all over our socials.
Yep, follow us on Instagram @Smorcana, on Twitter @Smorcana, on YouTube @Smorcana.
Anywhere at Smorcana.
And give us a subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. And if you're enjoying the cast, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us slide into our DMs on Instagram or send us an email, smorcana@gmail.com.
Yeah, or leave us a review.
We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.
Keep on snacking.